Hello, internet. And first, if you hear like a weird humming, thumping sound, I live close to the washing area in my building, so that's what that sound is. It's lovely. I know. But the important thing is today's video is going to be a book haul. I have waited until the last possible moment to do this book haul because I ordered a lot of books from Amazon. I went to the bookstore this month. I went to like Walmart and bought a book. Like, I just bought a lot of books. So I've been waiting very patiently for all of my books to come in. There are still a couple in transit, so you'll just have to wait to see those. But I have a large stack to show you. So we're gonna get into it, tell you about the books that I bought and maybe what they're about or why I bought them in the first place. The first book I bought is because, if you haven't heard, the BookTube SFF Awards are going on. They just released the shortlist earlier this month and I wanted to participate, so I bought this book. Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This was nominated in the middle grade section. I was previously interested in this book, but then it ended up on the shortlist and I was like, why not go to the store right now and buy it? And I loved this book. So this is about a young girl who ends up finding out that there is like a secret state called Nevermore, and this has magical laws unlike her own. So this is a very interesting magical world, and it has a magic called wonder, and there's like an evil thing called the Wondersmith that is talked about. But most of this book talks about Morgan Crow and her trying to find her spot in Nevermore. To do this, she ends up having to enter into a bunch of trials to get into an elite school that her patron has nominated her for, right? She has been sponsored. She's been sponsored to get into the school, but to officially get a placement, she has to complete a bunch of trials. This book was fabulous and I suggest you buy it. Plus, I really love the gray and the umbrellas. Like, I never knew umbrellas could be so fascinating. Book number 2 is a Holder edition of Firestarter by Stephen King. I must admit, I've only read 2 Stephen King books. He is not an author that I really plan to get into because I hear a lot about his endings, and I'm not quite sure I could go through a long list of books where the endings are only kind of okay. However, I have read Firestarter, and it was my favorite of the 2 that I read, and the ending was pretty decent, right? So I ended up buying it. It's a lot smaller than I thought. It's like my hand size, but it's beautiful with this beautiful red spine. This is a book about the government doing experiments on people. It ends up waking up latent genes, and these people end up having powers of some sort. And it follows a girl who is the child of one of these experiments, and she ends up coming out with pyrotechnic abilities. And I think there's a movie and Drew Barrymore plays it. I never watched that movie, but I definitely read the book, so I like the book, so I'm excited to have this beautiful copy. The next book is another SFF nomination, so I bought it. It was one that I had known about and was previously intrigued by, but the shortlist forced me to buy it. Like, I was forced to buy this book. I couldn't possibly not. And that is Nine Fox Gambit by Yoon Ha Lee. This is about a woman who is the captain of a fleet of ships. She ends up getting in a little bit of trouble, so to make it up, she ends up having another consciousness put in, and this is the consciousness of an old general, except this general is pretty crazy. So it's about him and her and their teamwork together, sharing her body as they do some crazy like ship battles or whatever. The second book in this series was the one nominated on the shortlist, so this is the first book which I bought, and the second book I did buy, but I haven't received it yet, so you don't get to see my copy of it. The next book is one that I bought because my library didn't have it, and that is The Stone Sky by M.K. Jemisin. This was also another book that was put on the SFF shortlist. This is something that I was already really interested in reading before the shortlist because I have read the previous 2, the 5th season and Obelisk Gate, which are part of this trilogy. This is the last book in the trilogy, and I decided to buy this in physical copy because my library did not have the audiobook, so I was like, whatever. I'm not hurt at all. First off, this is a beautiful looking book, and I love the squareness of the spine. Paperbacks with like this perfectly like chiseled spine, like, ooh, so sexy. But this is the last book in the trilogy. The whole series is about a world which has like two races of humans. One who are basically the muggles and boring people, and then one who are origin. They have some sort of control over earth elements and stuff. They are sort of enslaved by everybody else because of like history and stuff like that. We follow a woman Esun who is an origin, and this is a very character-driven book about how people are trying to survive while the earth is literally trying to kill them all the freaking time. So, ready. I'm ready for this. I'm ready. The next two books are a manga series that I have mentioned before on this channel, and that is Skipped B by Yoshi Nakamura. This is a very, very long series. It is something that I started in middle school. It is about this woman right here. She ends up betrayed by one of her best friends and just thrown to the wayside. So to get revenge, she ends up entering into the entertainment industry as an actress, and this whole story is about her quirky personality and her slowly rising to the magnificent actress that she is. I have slowly been collecting this series in the 3-in-1 volumes, which are 2 that I have right here to add to my collection. So this first one is volumes 13 through 15, and this second one is volumes 34 through 36. I have read all of them. I just really want to own them since this is something that is just so near and dear to my heart. This is one manga series that I definitely want on my shelf. The next book I feel is a little weird about hauling because in my reaction to the BookTube SFF Awards, I said I wasn't going to read this book because I didn't have much interest, but it turned out to be really cheap at the bookstore I went to. And that is City of Brass by S.A. Chabordsky. I had mentioned that I really don't know anything about this book. I still don't. I know it's fantasy, and that's about it. I know a lot of people like it because it ended up on the short list, but it wasn't available at my library, and I wasn't originally planning to order it online. So just by chance, I found it in the bookstore, and I figured that was a sign from the book gods that I should probably buy the book and read it. Although, once again, you don't have to do a lot to convince me to buy a book. Like, normally, I'm pretty easy to convince. I'm that person who I literally was looking at books that I hated while in the bookstore, and I was like, should I buy these? And I was like, why would you spend money on books you know you don't like? I have an issue, I know, but it's a thing. The next book I have is another sci-fi book, and that is The Stars Are Legion by Cameron Hurley. This is a Hugo Award winner. I have no idea what this is about other than it's sci-fi. As you can see, I've been purchasing a lot of sci-fi. It's been one of my goals to actively try to read more science fiction books. So this, as far as I'm aware, is about like women being badasses in space. Like, on the blurbs, half of these blurbs just use the word badass and kick-ass like 15 times. So that is basically all I know about this book. But badass women in space sounds pretty awesome to me. So, and also I have, for some reason, I've been buying a lot of orange books. My least favorite colors. But when it comes to how it looks on books, it is very appealing to me. Books make everything look nicer, in my opinion. Next is The Martian by Andy Weir. I know a lot of people have read this. I know this is really hype. I have not watched the movie. I have not read the book, so I bought it so that I could read the book. So I really don't know what this is about other than the basic premise of a man being stuck on Mars by himself, but that's it. I don't know anything else other than that. So we're gonna read it and we're gonna see if I actually like it. I hope I do. That's why I bought it. But I'm still kind of worried. Like, I'm hoping that like all this hype of everybody saying it's really, really good, it lives up to it, and I also think it's really, really good. Next, we have The Call by Pedrar Ogolin. This is not an usual buy for me. This is like a YA thriller horror sort of book. I believe all it is about is like somebody trying to kill people and like calls them and tries to kill them, like some horrorly slasher film or something. That's not usually something I go for, simply because I don't try to seek out books that will make me feel negative emotions. Like, I don't seek out sad books for the principle of being sad. And I usually don't seek out horror books that I know will give me anxiety. Like, I like not being, like, I wanna separate myself a little bit. Because I get way too involved in my characters' lives and backstories, as you have probably noticed. So I wanted to try it. We're gonna see if this is an area of fiction I want to delve more into. Next book that I have is actually a rebuy for me, and that is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I already own this book in this paperback purple, so like the purple you see on this cover here, I own it in paperback, but I ended up seeing this baby at the bookstore, The Mime Order. This is the second book in the trilogy, and I was like, might as well buy them both so I could have a full set, because you know how I feel about having uniformity in my editions. So I just repurchased the first book so I could then buy the second book. I still have no idea what this series is about, but from the few people who have read this book and talked about it, they seem to like it. And it has moths on the cover, and I usually like stories that have moths in it. I think moths are really cool, so I usually pick up books that have like moth motifs on them, because I'm that person. It's like eye motifs. Moths and eyes on books really intrigue me, so that is one thing that I just always buy. It doesn't make sense, but it gives me an excuse to buy a book, so I bought a book. The next book is one that I was super excited for. Once again, it's on the short list for the BookTube SFF Awards. Oh, what a surprise. But this is The Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Emez. This was something that I was so ready for, because there was a comment made by the author on Twitter. I ended up finding out about this book. I ended up looking it up. I was like, oh my gosh, why haven't I searched out this book before? I bought it, I started it, and I really like it so far. So this is about a band of old men, warriors/wizards, and they are on a mission to try to save one of their members' daughters, who has gotten herself in a spot of trouble, as far as they're aware. So they're getting the old gang back together, and they're off on a new adventure to try to rescue the daughter of this dude. The second book has already had its cover, and I'm pretty sure that second book is about the daughter they're trying to rescue in this one. So I'm really excited to read this so I can fully anticipate that second book, because all these characters seem really interesting. Plus, this is another book that has that squareness to the spine that I really adore. Like, ooh, like so sexy. And it's red, and I really like the color red. Like, red is one of my favorite colors. It has always been, ever since I was a kid. Next, we have A Face Like Glass by Frances Hardinge. This is a strange book. I don't really know why I picked it up, other than the concept seems interesting, so I'm gonna give it a try. This takes place in a world where people cannot have facial expressions. They don't do facial expressions. Everything's pretty meh. And there are face smiths that teach people how to fake their facial expressions, so they have like some sort of mockery of a smile or something. However, there's this one girl who has to wear a mask because she naturally can emote her emotions properly, and she is not the meh. So that's what this is about. I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna like it, but the mask on this book is really creepy, so I bought it because I was creeped out by the mask on the book. I have fascinating reasons as to why I buy books, as you can probably tell. So last month, I read my first Nnedi Okorafor books in the Binti novella trilogy, so I was like, need to read more of her books. So I decided to go for her YA Akata Witch and Akata Warrior series. I don't know much about this other than it's a girl. She ends up going to a school that teaches her magic and mystical stuff, and I really like this author's writing, and I know like she writes a lot about different African cultures within her books. So like in the Binti series, I ended up learning about the Himba people, also with all this Afrofuturism and everything I hear about Black Panther, which I haven't seen yet, and I know I'm ashamed, but I plan to see it over spring break. Don't hurt me. I'm avoiding spoilers like a good person, but I hear that the Himba people are represented, and a lot of people read that Binti trilogy and learned about the people and their culture from Nnedi Okorafor, so they ended up really liking the movie. So I want to read more of her so I can learn more about different cultures that I don't really know that much about, because I like learning, and learning is fun, and learning from books is fun. Plus, this is about a girl who goes to Magic Academy, and I like magic schools because those are also really fun. Next we have At the Edge of the Universe by Sean David Hutcherson. This is the same author who wrote We Are the Ants, which you know I love. It was one of those books that, for me personally, there's always one book in your life that is going to change your life by making you feel less alone in the world, and We Are the Ants was that for me. So I wanted to check out more from this author, so I bought one of his backlisted books, which was this one. I believe this one is about a boy whose friend ends up like disappearing from the universe, and he is the only one who can remember this kid. I don't really know much more than that. I just know I like the author, so I'm going to read his books. It's as simple as that. So the next trilogy gave me a bit of trouble. First off, this is a trilogy. I am going to separate the author from the art piece from the books. I know about some of the statements this author has said, but I have decided, in my personal opinion, that while I do not in any way agree with his statements, I like the way he said them. Like, he's completely wrong, but respectful enough that I'm willing to try to appreciate this one piece of art and separate it from him and his awful opinions. So that is the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I'm not going to spend like all my money on Brandon Sanderson books because I still don't agree with his comments, but I just heard so much about the Mistborn trilogy that I wanted to give it a shot. Also, buying this trilogy, there are several versions. I ended up going with the mass market paperback, which is like sort of the original copy. I like this one the best. The UK edition does intrigue me. I like the whiteness of it, but I only like the cover of that very first book. First we have the Mistborn, then we have the Well of Ascension, and then we have the Hero of Ages. So I think this is probably going to be the only Brandon Sanderson series that I do read at this time because I don't agree with his comments, but I am willing in this specific case to separate the artist from the art. So I felt like it needed to be said somewhere, so I was gonna say it here. The next series that I have that I hauled is also another old series that I heard about, so I wanted to try it, and that is the Sabriel series by Garth Nix. All I know about this series is a girl goes to magic school, and like I've said before, I like the concept of people going to a place of learning that has something to do with mystical, magical elements or supernatural elements to it. So we have Sabriel, we have Librarian, we have Asborin. I don't think I said that right, but it is what it is. I bought these three because they were pretty cheap, and I've heard so much about them that I wanted to give them a shot. And the last book in this book haul, I know it's been a really long one, is The Archived by Victoria Schwab. This is her middle grade series. I started this book on ebook by borrowing it from my library. I liked it, but I wasn't really feeling it at the time. I saw it at the bookstore and I was like, let's give this another shot. It was pretty interesting. This is a book about a young girl who ends up being involved with an organization called the Library. They capture souls in like books or something and they store them away, and her job is to capture all the spirits and send them back to the library when they escape. So if they escape, it's her job to find these lost souls and send them back to be archived once again. So that's all I know about it. It is like a concept that intrigues me, and I am excited to continue and actually finish this book. So I'm hoping that by having it in physical copy, that really, like, I'll like it better in this format than I was really enjoying it on ebook. Because I just, like, it wasn't meshing with me. I didn't dislike it. I was just like, I don't want to read this on my phone. So I now have a physical book so I can read it from pages, like an old person, you know. Back in my day, we used to read off of paper, not our phones. Such heathens, reading ebooks, you know. So I know that's a pretty substantial book haul. I'm really excited because, like, in part I'm super excited because this is moving more towards my goal of having at least 700 books to my own personal name in my own personal library, so eventually I can dominate the librarian world as the ultimate librarian. But I am increasing my TBR, which I had just decreased by a large number, and now I'm just adding in more books to raise my number to higher than it's ever been before. So I have a lot of books to read, but I ain't mad because I got a lot of awesome new books that I'm really, really excited about. I like books, okay? So I'm always excited when I get new ones that I'm, like, really excited about because, you know, how many words can I say that aren't just excited? Apparently not many. So what I want you guys to do, if there are any books that I mentioned here and you're just like, Chenoa, hold up, you need to read that book right now, comment down below and give me your suggestion for which books I have in this haul you think I really should read right this second, because I got some ideas. I'm eventually gonna read all of these books, obviously, but, like, which ones do you think I would enjoy more? Like, do you know which ones I would love as a reader? I don't know. I complain a lot about books on this channel, so you probably got a couple ideas about what I like to read. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, Internet.